When you look at the massive shift in transportation from rail to road in the 1950s, many would assume that the cars and the train would be bitter rivals. And yeah, they were. People that were once passengers had the chance to drive and own a vehicle for the first time, giving them freedom to travel anywhere without changing at major stations or having to watch the clock to ensure that they didn't miss that last train. But there were times that both car and railways got on harmoniously, and while some were a bit of a fad, there were, and still are, others that even today serve a purpose. The relationship truly began not in a railway shunting yard or even in the mind of a mad car inventor. It started in Minnesota, in a small city called Fairmont. The city was new, around 50 years old, and had only recently had a city charter appointed. The Fairmont Machine Company was as far-fetched from the railway as you could get. When it was created in the early 1900s, their main source of work were blacksmiths and metalsmiths. They were more into fixing horseshoes and making door fixings than machines. But as the machine age hit the city, their work started to change, and by 1907 they had started to produce single-cylinder engines that would power the local water pumps and farm equipment. Fred Mallam Sr. was employed as a section-hand railroad worker. His main line of work was maintenance and laying of track. At the time, the majority of the track was laid by hand, and it was long, hard work. Fred was also responsible for the track's general care, and he would travel the lines looking for any defect. But the use of railway engines was expensive for this type of work, and it would mean the employment of a crew. The railroads gave Fred a handcar. This was a railroad car that was powered by its passenger. To propel the handcar, the driver would sit on it and push a lever backwards and forwards. The action pivots a beam, called a walking beam, which is connected to the wheels. It's slow, and while a good upper body workout is guaranteed, it can be very tiresome. Fred wanted to improve on his handcar, and he turned to the little workshop in Fairmont to do it. The 2-horsepower engines the company were producing would be perfect for his idea, and he bought one and placed it on the handcart in order to power the wheels. It wouldn't be a first, as the Kalamazoo Manufacturing Company had built mechanical inspection cars before, but what he had in mind would be on a much larger scale. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Encouraged by the result, Fred contacted the company's superintendent and told him of the plan and what he had already done. His idea was already a few months old by this point, and he had written out any drawbacks the little motor had, as well as some improvements to the design. The superintendent agreed to help build him a bespoke handcar. It had the improvements Fred wanted, as well as a more powerful engine. The pair would take out the prototype on small journeys, and the result was a handcar that was lightweight but had enough power to allow the section hands to do their work with much more efficiency. The results were unexpected, to say the least, and as more railroads got wind of this little mechanical handcar, the orders came flooding in. Demand was outstripping supply, and the engines were nicknamed the Speedsters. The company grew and was renamed Fairmont Railway Motors. In 1909, it gained a new manager called Frank Wade. Wade was more into engineering than anything else, but he knew business and he knew how to market these new little engines. He promoted the motor cars to all 4 corners of the states, and almost every railroad had one in their yards, as well as many that were exported all across the globe. The company still needed to expand, and in 1928 they took over Mudge & Company, a company based in Chicago. From there they created another new factory, but the company wanted to corner the market and soon had their sights on Fairbanks Morse. The talks must have been awkward, to say the least, especially as Frank Wade was the Fairbanks' former employee. But the negotiations went well, and soon the company was acquired, bringing with it more tools and machinery. The company remained in the Wade family throughout the 1920s and 30s, when Fred's son Harold took over. In 1939, management shifted towards local businessman Howard Starrett, but Walter Casper took over upon Howard's death. During the war, like with many companies, work attitude and output changed for the war effort. Instead of new engines, the company focused on maintenance of the existing designs. But the end of the war brought something new to the company's table: Hyrail. Hyrail is basically a railroad vehicle. They have road wheels and rail wheels and can interchange between the two. Again, this wasn't new technology, but it was new in the way that they produced it. Both road and rails would have its advantages. Railways offered less resistance so the engines could work more efficiently, but using road wheels would be perfect for traction and for climbing the odd hill. It was also useful when working line-side. The high rails could traverse the tracks to where they were needed, but if the high rail needed to move out of the way, the road wheels were perfect. It also helped to turn it around. What's easier than driving it on the road and back onto the line? It only took a couple of minutes to switch between the two bogies. But the main core of the company was still the Speedsters. They were used for decades and Frank's grandson Richard Wade took over. But it seemed the age of the Speedsters were over. Modern technology, new machinery and new rolling stock soon put an end to them. In 1979, the company was sold to Harsco Corporation and the last Speedster rolled off the production line in 1991. The company still exists in the same place, making small machine goods and power tools. However, many parts of the original company remain, including the records room, which contains an archive of all the Speedsters the company ever produced. Of course, with so many Speedsters and so many unique designs, it wasn't long before enthusiasts flocked to them. They were simple and comparatively cheap to restore compared to other self-propelled rolling stock. The North American Railcar Operators Association governs a lot of the speeder clubs. The association not only promotes the restoration of these rail cars, but they also ensure their safe operation. As cute as they are still governed by the same rules and regulations as any other vehicle using the railway. They help to organise groups to be able to come together on lines which are rarely used and closed off to other railway traffic. Not only do they govern the rail cars, but they also ensure that drivers are competent and must pass an exam in order to operate a rail car on their rails. These little engines may not be the fastest or the most glamorous. They are literally a box on wheels, but they are an average enthusiast's dream. They're an ideal engine. They're easy to store, restore, look after and even move. They are that small they can be worked on in a normal garage. My only regret is that they're in the USA, because if I ever find one of these in the UK, rest assured I'll be snapping one of these up in a heartbeat.